dream proceeds from this rung. Okay, from, it may mean from Netzach, or it may mean from Gabriel. Every seemly dream proceeds from this rung, so you cannot have a dream without false material intermingling, as they have established. You can't have a dream without false material. Look at that 195. Yeah, so Gabriel, appointed over dreams, stands beneath Shekhinah. So Gabriel is outside of the purely divine realm, which means that demonic forces nearby can smuggle in false images. The dream is contaminated by falsehood. How can the dream have anything false if the dream comes from God, if the dream somehow is rooted in the divine? Because it has to move through various stages, from Netzach to Hod, to Yesod, to Shekhinah, to Michael, to Gabriel. It's 6 steps removed. Why does he want 6? Because of 60. Okay, remember you said that a dream is 1/60th of prophecy. Now that fraction 1/60th is being translated into mystical numbers. So we move from 1/60th to 6. That's why I think he's playing with 6, and Gabriel being 6 stages away from the beginning of prophecy in the spirit. Back to the Zohar. Consequently, some of them are true and some are false. Some dreams are true, some are false. You cannot have a dream that does not contain both this side and that. You can't have a dream that doesn't have false material, because the dream traverses some territory outside of the divine realm before it reaches our mind. Since a dream includes all, as we have said, all dreams of the world follow oral interpretation. What does that mean? All dreams of the world follow oral interpretation. This has been established, for it is written, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Where is that from? You can tell it's a verse because it's in italics, right? Everything in italics is from the Bible. This is from Genesis as well, but later in Genesis, just a few chapters later, Joseph is sold down to Egypt, sold by his brothers. He becomes a servant in the house of Potiphar. You may remember Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. Joseph withstands the temptation, is not seduced, but despite that, he ends up in jail. And when he's in jail, he interprets dreams of 2 of Pharaoh's ministers who've been sent to prison. And one of those for whom he interprets the dream later is restored to Pharaoh's service. And he tells Pharaoh, I know someone who can interpret your dreams. Pharaoh also has a dream. He's very troubled.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt that God is not.
Why? And he asks his interpreters, can you interpret? Nobody can. But Pharaoh's minister, the chief wine steward, tells Pharaoh, I remember when I was in prison, Joseph interpreted our dreams. A Hebrew lad interpreted our dreams, and he now can help you with your dreams. So how does that show you that all dreams follow an oral interpretation? Let's look at note 196. Note 195 is interesting too. Just look at here, 195, that's this paragraph from the Talmud. Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Shimon, son of Yochai, right, the hero of the Zohar, Shimon bar Yochai. This is an actual statement attributed to Rabbi Shimon in the Talmud. Just as there cannot be wheat without straw, so there cannot be a dream without nonsense. Okay, the Zohar says there's falsehood in the dream. Rabbi Shimon says there's nonsense in the dream. That's the Talmudic source. But 196, all dreams of the world follow oral interpretation. The true meaning of a dream depends on its interpretation. Look at the power there that's given to interpreting. The true meaning of a dream depends on its interpretation. It's a remarkable statement. And here too, there's a parallel in the Talmud, same tractate. These pages of the first tractate, 55, pages 55 to 58, I think, a few pages in the Talmud are filled with material on dreams. Rabbi Elazar said in the Talmud, how do we know that all dreams follow the mouth of the interpreter? And how do you know that interpretation determines the dream? Because it is said, as he interpreted to us, so it was. This verse, spoken by the wine steward, describing Joseph's mastery of dream interpretation, is quoted to show that interpretation is decisive. This is Pharaoh's chief cupbearer describing how accurately Joseph interpreted Okay, so the Zohar is saying dreams need an interpretation. Why? Because a dream contains falsehood and truth, and the word controls all. So a dream needs favorable interpretation. Let's look at note 197. The word of the interpreter possesses the power to actualize one of the possible meanings of the dream, for better or for worse. Okay, the dream could mean various things, and once an interpretation is given, that becomes decisive. Think of this psychologically. You have a dream, you ask somebody what the dream means, they tell you what it means. Maybe it meant that, maybe it didn't mean that. But if somebody says this is what it means, that can be very powerful, sometimes too powerful. The dream can determine, the interpretation can determine what the dream means. So that's all Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Yehuda said, back to the Zohar, because every dream is of the rung below, controlled by speech. So every dream follows speech. What does this mean? Every dream is of the rung below. Every dream comes from that angel Gabriel. Gabriel is controlled by Shekhinah, who's known as speech. One of her many names, she is speech. She conveys the divine word. You could say the whole system of the Sfirot is seen as God speaking. God's mind, Chokhmah and Bina, right? Then Bina is also seen as the throat, Tiferet as the voice, but not yet an articulated voice. Malchut, Shekhinah, is articulated speech. So the process of emanation is the process of God's word being pronounced. And that finally happens through Shekhinah. So she is called speech, Dibur. She is called speech. And that's why our speech is important here. Every dream follows human speech because human speech triggers divine speech. Look at note 198. Rung below controlled by speech. Gabriel, the rung below, is controlled by Shekhinah, who conveys the divine word and is known as speech. According to Rabbi Yehuda, human interpretation is effective because it activates divine speech, Shekhinah, who then translates the dream into reality. That's the process the Zohar sees here. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda related it to Shekhinah because of speech, human speech and divine speech. Now Rabbi Yehuda gives his further view. He opened his talk. He opened the verse up. He opened himself. He opened saying, now another biblical verse about dreaming from Job. In a dream, a vision of night, when deep sleep falls upon humans, in slumber upon the bed, he then uncovers human ears, and with a warning, terrifies them. Okay, what's terrifying a person? Something in a dream, maybe predicting some disaster, some message that comes to you in a dream. That's how Job describes what could happen in a dream. Come and see. When a person climbs into bed, he should first enthrone and acknowledge the kingdom of heaven. What does that mean? He should recite the Shema. By reciting the Shema when you go to sleep, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That's called, in rabbinic texts, accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. Acknowledging the kingdom of heaven. By reciting the Shema, they say in 199, by reciting the Shema, you enthrone God. You're accepting God as the universal ruler. So when you climb into bed, you should say the Shema, then recite a verse of compassion, a certain verse that the Talmud identifies. It's noted already on the next page. So from Psalm 31:6, into your hand I entrust my spirit. You redeem me, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, God of truth. Biyadcha afkid ruchi. Into your hand I entrust my spirit. Beautiful verse, and that's considered part of the evening ritual in bed, to recite the Shema, and then to recite a verse of compassion. For when a human sleeps upon his bed, his soul leaves him and goes wandering above, each in its own way, ascending so, as has been said. Okay, when you're sleeping in bed, your body is asleep, your soul is sailing through heaven, wandering through heaven. he means each in its own way, according to its conduct, depending on how it's acted during the day. It's able to explore certain regions of heaven that may be implied here. What is written? In a dream, a vision of night, when people lie asleep in bed and the soul leaves them, as is written, slumber upon the bed, he then uncovers human ears. Okay, God gives a message. Through the dream, God uncovers human ears. God speaks into a person through the dream, thereby uncovering the ear, unblocking the ear. How does that happen? Then the Blessed Holy One informs the soul through Gabriel, through the rung presiding over dreams. Notice the Zohar avoids naming the Sefirot, or even avoids naming the angels, wants to be as cryptic as possible. The rung presiding over dreams. We only know that means Gabriel because we saw it on the previous page. The Zohar does not make it easy. The Zohar is intentionally cryptic, as I said. So God informs the soul through Gabriel of things destined to befall the world, or of things corresponding to the mind's imaginings, so that one will follow a path of admonishment in the world. So God is giving admonishment, God is giving warning about what might happen, how a person should work on his or her own character. How do those messages come? They might be a message of what will happen, what will befall the world. They might be corresponding to the mind's imaginings. What does that mean? The dream could be corresponding to the mind's imagining. This is based on another statement in the same place in the Talmud, Brachot 55. Rabbi Shmuel son of Nachmani said, a person is shown in his dreams only his mind's imaginings.